more time. This is part 2 to the surface and the core. We wanted to come back to this one. So now the videos are going to get maybe a little more lengthier because it was a sequential process that I put this together. It takes me a little longer to get to the point because there's so much information. So we wanted to start off with the first video, the history of the Clipperdome. What is a man? What is a woman? It describes what we say or what we mean when we say from a boy to a mature man, from a girl to a mature man. It's not an age. These are titles or stages. The core and the surface, to connect to the other video, you have to watch that one first. The core and the surface, we're going to continue on the relationship piece. When we are in relationships, what we cannot do is have an experience that we have never had. I have never dated a man, so I cannot tell a woman how it looks from the other side. And sisters, because you've never dated a woman, if you've never dated a woman, you can't tell a man how it looks from the other side. You have a surface view of what a woman is and how she responds in a relationship, and vice versa for the brothers. Until you gather that experience, you had that experience, you don't understand how that dynamic works. So on the surface, because when I'm dating and I'm single, these are my experiences. This is what I was telling women. I was giving them this information that they did not have. But the sisters, the women, were giving me a wealth of information about the brothers that I did not have because I never dated a man and I didn't know those small intricacies that were going on in different dynamics that they never talk about in the barbershop. So in the barbershop, we having a lot of conversations, but their shortcomings, their downfalls, their trials and tribulations, they downplayed that in the shop. So that wasn't something that they took special notice to in front of another group of brothers. And the same thing in the salon for the sisters. Doing the research, they never told the bad things when they was using omission or when they lied or when they did something wrong. They only gonna put their best foot forward. So the surface and core conversations that we have, speaking to being in relationships with women, what I can teach other sisters is the omission that women use constantly and consistently when they'll trigger the man, okay? And it could be something that he did to her because I don't date women. I'm telling you what I can see from when she triggered the man or when I've been triggered, okay? Then I can explain to the woman that on the surface, it looks like that I'm the problem. But at the end of the day, the woman did something to trigger me. So I was responding to what she did. Now, she didn't tell her girlfriends or her sister or her mother that she omitted something or she lied or she spent too much money and I kept telling her not to do that and she continued to do what I told her not to do, and now that's coming back and being a repercussion or a consequence. She's not telling that part. That's the surface, but her core is to maybe get off on what I call the magic carpet, to go to that fantasy land. That's part of her core nature of who she is, and it's my job as a man to balance that out. So when we get to that point of core, where I'm supposed to step up and be the man and guide and direct and balance, then she's going to tell them that I'm trying to crush her dreams, I'm trying to control her. But that's my job, is to help govern and not control. I'm supposed to cover and not control. That's part of my job, but she's not going to tell that part. Now, on the brother side, we trigger women. And we'll come in the barbershop and they'll tell me their side. They'll say, okay, well, she spent $1,500 and I told her the last $1,000 she spent was too much. I'm trying to save some money so we can get this addition on the house or get this other house or get this car. But what he's not telling me is that he's running behind on some of the other bills because he went out and hung out with the fellas and took that trip to Vegas. So that Vegas trip was $3,000 and he didn't have. So he told her that she could spend that $1,500, but he didn't give her a time on that $1,500. So she spent that money when it was inconvenient for him. But that Vegas trip is what set him back. And that's the part he's not telling in the barbershop. So he triggered that sister to do what she did. Now, this is the surface stuff that's happening in the barbershop. The surface is she spent the $1,500. But the core of the conversation was he told her, okay, baby, you could do that. You do what you got to do, and I'll handle it. But see, when he took that Vegas trip, he wasn't looking to the fact that she could be triggered and spend that money when it's inconvenient for him. Because he wasn't being a man using that vision and being mature about his decisions. So these core things, these surface things, these are the conversations that I get all the time. but it's the omission is what they're not telling you. So whenever you're listening to a story, what I had to learn how to do absolutely, positively for sure, is to be able to tell a story or give a situation and take my perspective totally out of it. Okay? This video is the Clipperdome Chronicles. This is the second video to the surface and core conversations about relationships. That is a fact, that is the perspective, and that is the point. There is nothing else to that. I have had to learn how to tell a story or give a situation and extract myself out of it. Now, let me put me in it and show you how it sounds differently. When I'm in it, I think on my surface that these are the best videos in the world. I think on the surface that this should go viral. Okay? That's what I think. Now, that's my perspective. That's my opinion. But the first thing that I stated, that this is part 2 and all that other stuff, those were the facts. That was the perception, and that is the point. So now, coming back to these surface and core conversations. When you take the calls and you have in the forums, you have some people that go back and forth and they're debating a topic when I have men and women in the forums. So I have men on one side, women on the other side. Because a lot of times the dynamic is if there's a woman with a good point behind the brother, he has to turn around and people are turning around and trying to get the energy gets shifted. So what I do is I put men on one side, I put women on the other side. And then that's how we basically have these conversations. So when I get a sister that has a valid point and then the brother has a valid point, I'm there as the mediator to understand who is at the core and who is at the surface. So I have to adjust and adapt the conversation to that core surface relationship. So that's a lot of times being the mediator, having to go between those two and being able to differentiate where he is and where she is. I know that both of them lack information. Ignorance is not bad. It just means that you lack knowledge. It's not that you're stupid. It's not that you're dumb or crazy. It just means that there's knowledge that you do not have. So a lot of times I'm just talking about things that you don't know. We can talk all day about what you do know. Your core of what you know, or excuse me, the surface of what you think you know is spot on. I can't question that. That is your perspective and that's your relative truth. But until you have been a man and you have dated a woman, you can never understand that perspective. And vice versa with the brothers. Until you have been a woman and dated a man, there are things you do not know. So the core and the surface in our relationships, we have to know what level we are on. You have to know if they're speaking from the core or if they're telling you something that's surface. And then you have to meet the person where they are. So a lot of disruptions and dysfunctions and disagreements and arguments can simply be solved by understanding if it's a core conversation or if it's a surface conversation. Especially in our relationships in the beginning, on the onset. Again, you have to know the core of the woman is to be in a healthy, viable, long-term relationship. That's most females and women. That's just what it is. No matter what they say, fellas, she's going to tell you she just wants sex. She's lying. Most of them cannot do that. It's just what she has to say. Because it fits the conversation and it's surface. Because at her core, she's going to want more. And then what day, what minute does she flip that switch and switch from just wanting to have sex or just want to get to know you to want to be your woman or your wife? Ladies, there is a point for the brother or for the man to where he'll just tell you he wants sex. He'll just tell you it's casual, and most of you have experienced this as well. When is that minute? When is that moment, that day, where his switch flips and he wants more from you than just that? So you've heard that before in the hair salon. We've heard it before in the barbershop. But we're talking about the core and the surface. But we're talking about the things that you do not know. So this is the second part to the first video. And I wanted to put this on the tail end. But you have to watch the first video and connect it to this one. It's about the surface and the core conversations. Again, this is the Clipperdome Chronicles. We want you to test this. We want you to try this. We want you to test this, try this, take this to the barbershop, take it to the hair salon, take it to the church, or take it to the job. This is the Clipperdome Chronicles. Drop us a like and subscribe. Thank you.